Who should work in the pyramids? You have to bring scientists from a museum, from a university, but you cannot bring an amateur from New York or London.
You want to squash debate involving, conspiracy theorists and everything. All we got to do is go in and look. We know where it's at. We could drill a hole. This is doable.
This is the pyramid of Egypt. This is something valuable. This is one of the 7 wonders of the world. Yep. You just can go and boom and drill like this.
When you were on Joe Rogan, you said that you didn't know what Tepe was. And as the premier Egyptologist in the world, you do know the Egyptian creation myth. Would you mind just explaining it to us real quick so that to kind of vindicate yourself and show the world you do know what Tepe is?
I teach the Egyptian creation, but I am saying this term that you're talking about, I never heard of it.
Are you saying on the record there has been no exploration in the way that Jimmy Corsetti says?
Jimmy, this conspiracy theory that you do have is wrong completely. We are not hiding anything.
To his legion of admirers, Dr. Zahi Hawass is the world's top expert on Egypt's mighty pyramids, and for good reason. Throughout an illustrious career, Dr. Hawass has served as the Chief Inspector of the Great Pyramids, Director General of the Giza Monuments, and the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities in Egypt. His book, Giza and the Pyramids, is considered the definitive account. But to his critics, he's an academic gatekeeper, an elitist of Egyptology who is preventing others from interrogating the real truth about how, when, and why the pyramids were built. Many in Joe Rogan's audience felt that way after his appearance earlier this year.
Most of the information that's written on pyramids are wrong.
Most of it?
Most of it.
In archaeology books?
In archaeology books.
Really?
Except me and Mark Lehner.
You guys are the only ones that have it right?
Because have been working in Giza for the last 57 years of my life. I excavated every piece of sand.
Well, in this special edition of Uncensored, Dr. Zahi Hawass will join me to discuss his incredible work, and we'll be joined by 2 of his most high-profile critics from the alternative archaeology community who say the truth about the pyramids has yet to be revealed. And we'll bring those 2 gentlemen in shortly. But first of all, Dr. Hawass, welcome to Uncensored. Let me just ask you, first of all, what was your reaction to the reaction you got when you appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast? Because a lot of it was very negative.
No, when I give any talk about pyramids, I expect the person who interview me to read about pyramids or to read about our work. I am sorry, when I did this last interview, I didn't see that Mr. Rogan did really read anything that we published. And that's why I was trying to refer to our excavation, to our book, and so. But I'm sorry that he said that this show was the worst he did, and after that he said it was good. It's his opinion, but I do, when I talk about evidence of how the Egyptian built the pyramids, I present all the archaeological evidence that I do have. In the other side, I don't see any evidence that anyone can give me to say that pyramids built by so-and-so. And that was my point. My point that I have been excavating in Egypt for the last 57 years. I excavated every piece of sand at Giza Plateau. Then when I present a theory or any idea, I present it with evidence. I'm not talking about something on air. No. I'm talking about what we have been discovered at Giza for the last 50 years.
But let me ask you, if you don't mind me just quibbling about one thing, have you really examined every grain of sand at Giza?
We did. You know, I have to tell you.
How many grains are there?
I discovered west of the Great Pyramid about 20 tombs. One of them mentioned in the Wad al-Jarf papyri that talking about building the pyramid by someone whose name was Mirror. We found the tombs of the pyramid builders at Giza. Big, major, important discovery. We found the tombs in the upper cemetery for the technicians with titles in hieroglyphic. Each title has to do with building the pyramid. The lower cemetery for the workmen who moved the stones. And next to this, Mark Cleaner excavated an area for sorting salted fish, the bakery for making bread, the houses and the villages that the workmen lived. Then we do, I can't talk to you. This is what I'm doing in the States now. This is top number 25 for me in my lecture in America, that really I'm presenting to the people all the evidence that we do have to say that Khufu built this pyramid. And this pyramid did not appear at once. No.
But the key recent discovery that I believe you've made public, is that it's always been traditionally assumed that the pyramids were built by 100,000 slaves. But you've done some research recently that you believe contradicts that theory. Your team unearthed tombs near the pyramids, you just touched on that suggest they were in fact built by highly skilled, paid laborers under a strict regime and were not actually slaves, because the slaves, you've argued, wouldn't have had formal burial in close proximity to the pyramids. So, A, just explain that to me, and B, explain why this is such a significant discovery in your opinion.
Okay. When we discovered the tombs of the pyramid builders, this discovery, based on the names that we found inside the upper cemetery, I can tell you that pyramids were built by the ancient Egyptian, because all the names that we found were Egyptian names. The second important thing, that there were no slaves. If there were slaves, the workmen will never be buried in the shadow of the pyramids. If there were slaves, they will never prepare their tombs for eternity like kings and queens. I want to tell you one important thing. There is a big difference between slavery in America in the past and Europe and in Egypt. In America and Europe, you can own a person. In ancient Egypt, you can have a servant working for you. Because I found one tomb west of the Great Pyramid. It's for a priest. His name is Kai. And at the entrance of his tomb, he's saying the following: I built my tomb. I hired workmen, sculptors, and artisans. I paid them beer and bread. I made them to be happy. And that's really an evidence to tell you that we have to understand the meaning of slavery in ancient Egypt. There was no slavery in ancient Egypt.
But that, it does seem to me, if you don't mind me saying, Dr. Hawass, I bow to your far greater expertise than me. You've written a 1,000-page book on Giza alone. I'm not going to try and quibble with you about the history of the pyramids or anything. I would simply say, it seems to me more logical, and correct me if I'm wrong here, more logical that, yes, I totally can see that a lot of the local artisans and others would be brought in on this incredible project. But is it not really stretching credibility that they would not have also used what we would categorize as slaves in some capacity? Because the work was so onerous, so tough, so hard, and it would take 100,000 or more people. Were there really 100,000 artisans prepared to do that kind of heavy-duty work? Or is it not more likely that it was a mix of the two?
The number of the workmen that were involved in construction of the pyramid, based on our excavation, were only 10,000 workmen. And we have to understand that the Egyptian, before they began to build the pyramid, they had to make a big type of administration to cut a canal, to cut the harbor, for bringing stones from Aswan, from Torah, to set the workmen area. And this is why the 100,000 workmen were said by Herodotus, the father of the history, who came to Egypt in the middle of the 5th century BC. And Herodotus used to hear from guides. Then there is not any evidence of the 100,000. But we do believe, based on our work and our work on the discovery of the tombs of the pyramid builders and the workmen installation, that the workmen were only 10,000 workmen.
But I find that I'm not questioning your research. I'm simply raising a quizzical eye. For example, the World Cup football recently took place in Qatar. I went out there for it, and they built a number of stadiums over a few years. But I think they had around 10,000 people building those football stadiums. There's no comparison in the complexity and size of these stadiums to the pyramids, and they had all the benefit of modern technology to help them. So this idea that you could have the same number of people that built the World Cup stadiums for Qatar, and you could do the pyramids with them back in ancient times, it doesn't seem plausible to me.
No. One thing I want to tell you, and this is what I'm saying always in my lectures. I'm saying, if you stood in front of the Great Pyramid today, and you look at it, you will never believe that any human being can build it. Why? Because you don't know. And number two, we have to understand one thing, that the construction of the pyramid was a national project of the whole nation. The 3 millions who lived in Egypt in that time, in the time of Khufu, participated in building the pyramid to make the king as a god. Then can you believe moving an obelisk from Aswan to Hatshepsut temple?
It's incredible.
It took 7 months. It took 7 months. And this can be, it's depicted in the temple of Hatshepsut, showing how they cut this obelisk, how they transported the obelisk on boats. It explains how they worked for 7 months because they want to make the king as a god. And this is why the households in Upper and Lower Egypt, all of them participated in sending workforce and food to help the king. In return, they did not pay taxes. Then the organization of building the pyramid, as we can see, the major problem that people look at Khufu pyramid only. They don't look what happened before and what happened after. If you see how they started, you see there is no gap in the Egyptian history at all to make anyone to think there is something we could argue about.
Okay, well look, before I bring in the other two panel members, I want to play you a clip. This is from when I had the world famous Graham Hancock on Uncensored, who said this: what do you really want to achieve? What is the goal?
Most of all, what I would like to achieve is for archaeologists to engage with my work without smearing me, without calling me a racist and a white supremacist and a misogynist and an anti-Semite. All of these words were applied to me.
So I guess my question there, Dr. Hawass, is do you have an objection to people like Graham Hancock having their own theories about the pyramids because they're not actually from the Middle East, because they're white guys from England?
At all. First, you have to understand that Egyptology, you have hundreds of American Egyptologists and French and German who are not only the Egyptian Egyptologists. And by the way, I debated Graham Hancock and John Anthony West and Robert Bofal many times in many places. I met Graham in Egypt. I invited him for dinner. And I talked to him. And I ask Graham all the time, if you do have evidence of what you believe on the date of the pyramids and moving stones, you don't have any evidence. If he give me one single evidence, I will accept that. You know, I won't tell you about moving stones. We do have a scene from the Old Kingdom talking about moving stones. In the Middle Kingdom, a statue, 60 tons, 170 Egyptian dragging the statue. The Hatshepsut obelisk, all this can tell us how the
Egyptians. Let me ask you, let me ask you, why do we not, given we've got technology these days which can go incredibly deep, why don't we just go under the pyramids and go right deep, right down, and really get to the bottom of this? What's the objection to doing that?
I don't, but you have to understand, we are working right now to measure expeditions. One from England, working under me, and one called scan pyramids. We are using the most sophisticated techniques to understand and to discover the voice discoveries that we revealed until now, many of it, and there is others we'll reveal later. Then we are not objecting, but who should work in the pyramids? You have to bring scientists from a museum, from a university, but you cannot bring an amateur from New York or London to come and work in scientific.
Okay, well, that's quite interesting, because what they say, of course, is that it's a bit of a carve-up and that you guys are the pyramid establishment and you don't like outsiders because you don't want them contradicting your narrative. So look, let's bring in the other two guests. Joining us now, two independent researchers and investigators of lost ancient history. Jimmy Corsetti, the host of the Bright Insight YouTube channel, and from the debunking channel, Dan Richards. Welcome to both of you. We've had you both on before, of course. Jimmy Corsetti, what would you like to say to Dr. Hawass about his recent revelation from his team's research that they believe the pyramids were not built by slaves, and there weren't 100,000, there were about 10,000, and they were artisans at the time?
To be honest, well, let me first say, Piers, thank you for having me back on. And Zahi, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. There's a few things I take issue with what he had said. First of all, this Scan Pyramids project, that initial discovery was back in 2016, and it was corroborated into a published study in 2017. Well, when you look from 2016 to 2025, that's 9 years ago. That's almost a decade. And I'm trying to understand why we wouldn't have drilled a 1/2-inch diameter hole and sent in a endoscope camera into this hidden chamber. Because let's not forget that the Great Pyramid of Giza is arguably the most mysterious and debated structure in all of human history. We don't know exactly how it was constructed. And in fact, how it was constructed is one of the most debated topics. Another debated topic is whether it was actually built to be a tomb for the pharaohs, because after all, we never found any mummy in any Egyptian pyramid ever. So with those two significant points of debate, we could squash those debates by simply going in and exploring it. So I guess I have a question for Dr. Hawass at this time, which is, why haven't we drilled into that hidden chamber? When will we do it? And the third question is, has it already been done so in secret?
Wow. Great questions. All right, Dr. Hawass, your response.
Now, number one, you have to understand, until today is in July 2025, we still have the Scan Pyramid team are working. You know that they found behind the main entrance the corridor, and they found above the Grand Gallery the big void. And the Egyptian team, the English team that working under me, they found some important voids. And in archaeology, you have to be patient. You have to study how are you going to drill, or the new techniques that they're using. The new techniques that they're using, like ultrasound and infrared, penetrating radar, all of this, you do not need to drill anymore. You can see what's behind a wall, because the English team from London and Sean, who's working for me, they found a void behind the northern entrance of the Queen Chamber with hieroglyphic signs. We are studying now how can we approach all these voids. But you have to understand one thing. We are not making anything secret. We advertise everything that we discover. We found above the King Chamber, in the 5 chambers, relieving chambers, 2 more names of the gangs who built the pyramids. And we found year 13 of Khufu's reign. And this is what I'm talking about in my lecture in the States now. This is my number 25 lecture that I am publishing, announcing to the public everything that we discover inside the Great Pyramid. Nothing is secret.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to have that clarified. Can I just ask you, just on a personal level, about one thing that's constantly put out there as to whether you believe this is true? that the Great Pyramid of Giza is claimed to have a correlation with the Earth's circumference and polar radius, based on the idea that multiplying the pyramid's perimeter by 43,200 equals the Earth's equatorial circumference, and multiplying its height by 43,200 equals the Earth's polar radius. So that this number, 43,200, is also related to the precession of the Earth's axis. Is that all true?
You know, I'm not objecting any theory, but you have to understand, every day I hear a theory about a pyramid. Sometimes
but that one is, I mean, that one is an amazing theory.
Months,
if that theory is true, it is mind-blowing. Do you think it's true?
No one send it to me, I will study it, and I will...
Have you not heard it?
It's the same number on the Sumerian kings list. 43,200 has been seen in ancient history inexplicably, and the Sumerians are the earliest document human civilization we have, and that number ties in with them. Real quick, I'm sorry, but Zahi, you didn't answer my prior question. Have you guys gone in and explored that hidden chamber? And if not, when will you be doing so? Because to be honest, we could do it by the end of the weekend. It's not difficult to drill a half-inch diameter hole and send in an endoscope here. So have we been in there? And if not, when are we going, brother? I need to know. This will answer all of our questions. If you want to squash debate involving, you know, the conspiracy theorists and everything, all we got to do is go in and look. We know where it's at. We could drill a hole. This is doable.
Yeah, I agree. Why can't you just go in?
I answered your question, and I said,
so you're saying we have not gone in and explored that chamber. Is that correct?
Can you please let me to answer you?
Yes.
I already answered you, and I said, all these voids that we found, the Scan Pyramid team and the English team, right now, we are discussing and studying how we are going to get in. You cannot just go in directly like this. You have to make a study. You have to research it. You have to decide as a scientist, when can you do it? And when we can use it,
been 9 years.
We do that, we can...
Yeah,
9 years,
come on.
brother.
I mean, look, we sent rockets...
We
sent rockets to the...
Wrong.
Hang on,
you are wrong.
Dr.
I'm
Hawass,
sorry.
we have sent rockets to the moon since the 60s. I mean, the idea we can get to the moon in space rockets, but we can't get inside a chamber of a tomb in a pyramid. I mean, come on.
Do you want me to answer now or still any talk? I told you what we found inside the Great Pyramid. And I told you, this year, 2025, is the year that we are studying how can we enter inside these voids. And he said 9 years. Yes, it can take more than 9 years. This is the pyramid of Egypt. This is something valuable. This is one of the 7 wonders of the world. Yep. You just can go and boom and drill like this. You have to be sure that this drill is important to discover something.
Okay.
But it's not 9 years. We have been working since 9 years until today.
I hear you. Let me bring in Dan Richards. Dan, what would you like to say to Dr. Hawass? Because there is obviously, there's been a kind of raging conflict between what people see as the establishment Egyptologists who have kind of access and control, and then all you guys who would probably love to get that kind of access and control but don't have it. What do you view about what he's been saying?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Beirs. It's good to meet you, Zahi. I have a quick... when you were on Joe Rogan, you said that you didn't know what Zep-Tepi was. And I figured I would give you a chance. I would imagine as the premier Egyptologist in the world, you do know the Egyptian creation myth. Would you mind just explaining it to us real quick so that to kind of vindicate yourself and show the world you do know what Zep-Tepi is?
No, I mean, I know about the ancient Egyptian creation, but maybe I don't know this term. But what I'm saying, what this has to do with what we are discussing now.
Oh, it's very important because, I mean, it's the ancient Egyptian creation myth involves the primeval mound, right? And this is a symbolic big
exactly.
This is something you're going to see all over the ancient world. So that term Zep-Tepi is you see it in Egyptian without the vowels, but it's the Egyptian creation myth. So it's kind of important. It's a very important lens to use when you're interpreting these artifacts. So when you were on Joe Rogan and he asked you what it was and you said you didn't know what it was, that so honestly, if you wouldn't mind, it's a good chance to vindicate yourself.
I teach the Egyptian creation, but I am saying this term that you're talking about, I never heard of it. Maybe it is not in, I never heard it in the world of Egyptology. Maybe it's between the others, but I can tell you about creation, how the Egyptian created this world. But I don't understand why this has to do with the pyramid now that we're discussing.
Dan, let me ask you just on the wider point of the recent discovery by Dr. Hawass, or the claim from the research that there were no slaves involved in the building of the pyramids.
That, to me, that's ludicrous. I mean, I worked construction for a long time, and they're using the food and the graves and stuff. And I mean, I saw many construction workers eating McDonald's while there was other construction workers eating steak. It just depends on if he's a foreman, if he's an engineer, or if he's just a grunt. The painters don't eat as good as the electricians, who don't eat as good as the engineers and the architects. So, you know, having 10,000 people buried in the shade of the pyramid in a grave, mind you, that only says they worked for Khufu. It never says that they built the pyramids. So that's a stretch. It's an assumption that these are pyramid builder graves. But in addition to that, there could be graves of tens of thousands of slaves off the site that haven't been discovered, that were doing all of the grunt work while somebody else was holding the plumb bob. So to me, it's ludicrous to say there were no slaves involved.
But to be clear, and to be fair to Dr. Hawass, you don't know for a fact that it's not true, do you? What are you saying?
Of course not. That's ancient history, right? We can all speculate, we can all spitball, but the only things we really know are carbon dating and written records, kind of, sort of. But I mean, we fudge written records all the time, even today. So,
all right, Jimmy, you raised your hand.
I completely agree with everything that Dan just said. However, something very important for all of us to be humbled by is the fact that the Great Pyramids of Giza were allegedly created by the Old Kingdom. And there's a few things that need to be considered when we discuss what we think we know and what we don't know about the pyramids construction, which is that after the pyramids construction, there was 3 other changes of kingdom within Egypt: Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom. And between them are missing chapters of human history within Egypt. For example, between the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom is approximately 126 years of completely missing history. It's conjecture. We think that it may have been a revolt within Egypt, a civil war, but something happened to completely overthrow the 4th dynasty going into the 5th dynasty. And then between the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom is approximately 186 years of missing history. So the point that I'm making is that within each of those 2 chapters of missing history, that's longer than any human lifespan. It's multiple generations, which means that nobody was alive afterwards to say what was happening before. We have absolutely no idea how the pyramids were constructed, how, or even precisely when. And actually, I should point out that, Zahi, you mentioned about the movement of stones, and you cited that 60-ton stone that they depict being moved on a wooden sledge. Well, that is only 60 tons, whereas the Egyptians had moved the 1,000 metric ton Ramesseum statue. 1,000 metric tons is well over 2.2 million pounds, and it was inexplicably moved approximately 170 miles from Aswan to Luxor. That is 17 times heavier than that statue that you repeatedly cite. Not twice as heavy, not 5 times as heavy, not 10 times as heavy, 17 times heavier. And are we to pretend that wooden sleds are infinitely scalable? The reality is that there is a mystery here. We don't know how they constructed the pyramids. We don't know how they lifted and stacked 80-ton stones 300 feet above the ground. And again, I just would like your clarification. Are you saying that there has been no exploration into any of those hidden voids yet above the Grand Gallery? Can you tell me in good faith that you're certain that nobody within the Egypt Ministry of Antiquities has explored that yet?
Okay, well, a lot to unpack there. So first of all...
Yes or no, Zahi? Sorry, Piers.
Dr. Hawass, answer that last question definitively. You know, you've been asked it directly. Are you saying on the record there has been no exploration in the way that Jimmy Corsetti says?
Jimmy, I want you to understand, this conspiracy theory that you do have is wrong completely. We do not hide anything. If the Egyptian, listen, if we do have any evidence that pyramids are back 15,000 years old, what's wrong with this? We'll announce this. We are not against anything. But what I am saying, we are not hiding anything. And you have to know this. Your theory that we have something that we hide is not true. Always,
Yes.
any discovery and any
I appreciate what
excavation.
you're-
We
Okay,
are not hiding anything. I want you to
But
know
what
this.
about the second?
And
Okay,
number
but what
two,
about
Yes.
Well,
yes,
what about?
no.
Hang on. What about the second point that Jimmy made, which is surrounding the Ramesseum, which was 1,000 tons? How did that get moved?
You know, I want to tell you one thing. I can give you 3 evidence of moving stones. We have the Wadi al-Jarf papyri. Do you know anything about this papyri? The
I do not.
papyri is
Talking about-
talking
I'm sure they
about
do, I
an
don't.
overseer of a workman who went to Totora to cut the white fine limestone for the casing of the pyramid. And he talked about
Right,
his
small
boss.
stones.
His name is
Those
Didi.
stones are like
that we
4 to
found
6
his tomb.
tons at the most.
You have in the Middle Kingdom.
Right. And by the way, when it comes to that
Absolute-
papyrus you keep
moving
talking
and
about,
op-
it says
please
absolutely,
let
the word
me- I
pyramid
gave
is
you-
not mentioned one
I
single
gave you the
time.
to answer. You did not. I gave you the time to talk. Give me the time to answer you, please.
You never said yes or
I'm
no, though,
saying-
to that prior question about exploring
can't
that
hear
pyramid.
you.
You didn't say yes or no. You said there's no secrets, but yes or no, have you been in there?
I told you we are not. We did discover the void. We are talking now. We are searching now. We are discussing now. How can we enter this void? Then
I know that that's
had
true.
the voids.
But have you done it yet?
No, we have told you this year it will happen. It will happen this year before the end of 2025 and the beginning of the year. We are going to show all the voids inside the pyramid.
All right,
live
Dr. Hawass, let me ask
in
you.
a TV.
Dr. Hawass, let me ask you. What is the one thing you are desperate to discover about the pyramids which you've never been able to answer yourself?
Number one, I want to tell Jimmy that we found all the evidence of how the Great Pyramid was built. Completely.
No,
we don't
because
really
you haven't
have
explained how
any.
they lifted and stacked 80-ton stones 300 feet above the ground, and prior to that, they were moved 500 miles from Aswan.
We have it shown. We have it shown in scenes, in tombs, in the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom
not
and the Old
correct.
Kingdom. You have to go and read. You have to go and read about this. But number two,
Which tomb?
what
I already know
really
that that's
as
not true, but
Mr.
I know that that's not true. So for the audience,
tomb-
why don't you
the
cite which
tomb of
tomb so we can
Jehoshaphat-
Google it upon ourselves?
The tomb of Jehoshaphat. The tomb of Jehoshaphat at Deir el-Barsha. It shows 172 men are moving a 60 tons statue. Then what's
Which is
your
17
problem?
times
I don't
less
understand.
weight than the Ramesseum statue.
How do you move 1,000-ton stone, like you said? How do you do that?
Do you know, I want to show you today, our workmen today, who are the descendants of the workmen in the past. They move in front of me more than 60,000 tons. This is a national project. This Egyptian who lived
don't
in
know
the
that?
time of Ramses II.
This is in the Old
What do you
Kingdom,
mean
and
you
there's
don't know that?
absolutely no documentation of any kind describing how the pyramids were constructed. Again, there's missing history that happened right after.
You are
There's
wrong.
absolutely
You are wrong.
Out of the
You are wrong.
100,000 hieroglyphs in Egypt, there's not one single one that depicts or otherwise describes in any capacity the construction of the pyramids. And again, that diary that you keep citing actually doesn't include the word pyramid whatsoever. Just like Dan Richards had just said, it's an assumption. You know, Zahi, if you would like to invite me out to show me, the exploration of this hidden void, I think it'd be very good for the influence of the various influencers within this community on the
I
internet
agree.
that are concerned that things have not been shared on the up and up.
I'd actually like to come.
I like you. I know
I'd
it
like to
sounds like
come
I'm
as the
sharpshooting you.
impartial guide on that trip, actually.
And I would report on it, honestly, Zahi.
But listen,
Let me bring Dan back in. Dan, out of interest, the same question to you,
Can I
Dan.
say-
Wait, hang on one second, Dr. Hawass. Dan Richards, what is the thing you would most like to just know for sure about the
Well,
pyramid?
honestly, as a guy who's worked construction a lot, there's one of the questions that are unanswered about the construction of the pyramids. You can say that you know how they lifted the stones all you want, but the squaring of that edifice to itself, the Great Pyramid has about a 2-inch deviation on a 756-foot run. That's less than 1,000%. You can't do that with ropes because they're going to sag. You can't do it with putting sticks back to back because you're going to get errors. Nowadays, we use transits and lasers. 500 years ago, they built the observatory at Greenwich, and it's not remotely as accurate to itself as the Great Pyramid. So honestly, I would just like to know how the hell they got it so perfectly accurate in its own footprint. How do they square something on that size? It's like machine age accuracy on a gigantic scale. So do you have any idea how they squared the edifice, Dr. Hawass?
Did you go to Dahshur to see the pyramids of Khufu's father?
No, I have not been to Egypt, but I'm aware of the pyramids at
Okay,
Dahshur.
then if you haven't been in Egypt, how can you base on what you see? Because you have to know one thing. When the Egyptian began to think about building Khufu pyramid, you have to know they choose Giza Plateau, because Giza Plateau is a part of the Muqattam formation. Level 1 and 2 are very bad stones, but level 3 has the best quality of the stones. All stones for building the pyramid came 1,000 feet away from the base of Khufu pyramid, and we located the location of the quarry. But before they moved the stones, they had to cut in the solid rock until they made the base of the pyramid 8 meters of solid rock, no stones. And they established a ramp from the quarry to the southwest corner. The ramp was constructed of stone, rubble, and sand. And we excavated the route of this ramp, and we found it. Then the Egyptian had a team cut it.
Sorry. I'm sorry, yes, go ahead.
The Egyptian divided the workmen, as we hear from Wadi al-Jarf Babiri, that I would like Jimmy to read first before he can talk to me. The Wadi al-Jarf
I've been there 3
Babiri
times.
is explaining...
Don't come at me like that. I've been to Giza 3 times, and I loved it. And I would love to go out there with you. I sincerely mean that. I know it sounds like I'm sharpshooting you, but...
I'm talking about the Wadi al-Jarf Babiri. You have to read it to understand.
Right, and it says what? It doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about how they constructed the pyramids.
I'm talking about the accuracy, how they made it so square. It's extremely perfect, and it's the kind of thing that we can't do today without lasers. We don't do it. You can't do it with ropes. You can't do it with sticks. There's a mystery there.
What's your conclusion? No, I need to understand.
Honestly,
what do you want to say?
My conclusion is they used, the plate, the plate with many rings, like a target that you have in the museum in Cairo. I believe that was a target that they used a concave mirror and used the pinpoint of light to fill up circles at different distances. I haven't been able to test that, but they had to use something more than ropes, because you can't get that kind of accuracy without something better. I'm trying to keep it low tech.
Again, my question, what is your conclusion? If the Egyptians did not do this, who did it, in your opinion?
I'm not saying the Egyptians didn't do it. I'm talking about specific problems and how to solve them. I don't care if Gandhi did it. I'm talking about how to get it squared. And so I'm trying to answer that without going to lasers or ancient high tech. But honestly, the issue here, that as I see it, is you're telling me that the problem's solved. I'm telling you that if I was tasked with doing that, as a guy who's been tasked with pouring foundations, I couldn't do that. I would be looking at it going, I'm going to need better tools than what you had available.
Could it be that they were just better back then at construction than we are now?
Well, you're talking about a margin of error. So, I mean, you still have to figure out how they measured.
There were geniuses all over the place in that period of the history of the planet. Why couldn't they just have had construction geniuses who, bereft of things like lasers, had to come up with other brilliant ideas to do? I mean, look, somebody built this, right? Somebody built this. I have to assume they were humans. It's most likely they were Egyptian humans. So we should be able to agree on those broad parameters. The fascinating thing about the pyramids is we just don't really know how they did it. And I hope...
And it exceeds the known capabilities of the dynastic Egyptians.
Yeah. Well, what's that, sorry?
What the pyramids themselves exceed the known capabilities of the dynastic Egyptians.
So that's what makes it so fascinating. And look, we've run out of time. I could talk about this for hours. I've become a real Egypt pyramid nerd because of this. But I actually love your idea, Jimmy, that we all go out to the pyramids. Maybe at the moment that you get inside these chambers and we actually discover maybe the secrets of one of the great wonders of the world. I've got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Hawass, for joining me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
But I will be happy to see all of you in Cairo.
Brilliant.
And take you in a tour.
Brilliant.
And show you what I'm talking about.
I would actually love to see the pyramids. I think it'd be an amazing episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. Let's go on the road. Let's go to the pyramids.
I'm waiting.
Let's do it.
I'm waiting for you, and I will give you a personal tour.
Love it. I'm in. Done. Agreed. Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Nice
I
talking
appreciate
to all
it.
of you.
Thank you.
Really good to talk
Thank
to
you, Zahi. It was a pleasure.
Zahi.
I'd love
Good
to meet you in Cairo.
See you in Cairo. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Piers. Take care, Jim.
Thank you.